courage to be disliked, the Japanese phenomenon that shows you how to change your life and achieve real happiness, by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake. Koga is a philosophical self-help book that draws heavily on the theories of Austrian psychologist Alfred Adler, presented as a Socratic dialogue between a philosopher and a young man. The book challenges conventional thinking about happiness, relationships, and personal growth. Through their conversation, the authors distill Adlerian psychology into practical, transformative principles that encourage readers to embrace freedom, authenticity, and self-acceptance. Below is a comprehensive summary of the book's key messages, woven into a cohesive narrative that captures its essence and philosophical depth. The book opens with a young man visiting a philosopher to debate ideas about happiness and life. The young man is skeptical, frustrated by the complexities of existence and societal pressures, while the philosopher calmly introduces Adlerian psychology as a framework for living freely and joyfully. The central thesis is that happiness requires courage, specifically the courage to be disliked. Unlike Freudian psychology, which emphasizes past trauma as the root of present struggles, Adlerian psychology posits that we are not bound by our past or circumstances. Instead, we have the power to choose our own paths and create meaning in our lives. This idea sets the stage for the book's exploration of freedom, responsibility, and human connection. One of the most profound messages is that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. The philosopher explains that our struggles, whether feelings of inferiority, anxiety, or dissatisfaction, stem from how we relate to others. Adler's concept of the separation of tasks is introduced as a cornerstone for resolving these issues. This principle teaches that each person is responsible only for their own tasks, not others. For example, you cannot control how others perceive you, nor should you try to please everyone. Attempting to do so leads to a loss of personal freedom and authenticity. The young man initially resists this idea, arguing that caring about others' opinions is natural, but the philosopher counters that seeking approval traps us in a cycle of external validation. True freedom comes from accepting that others' judgments are their own tasks, not yours, and focusing instead on living according to your own values. This leads to the book's emphasis on self-acceptance as the foundation for happiness. Philosopher argues that feelings of inferiority are subjective interpretations, not objective truths. Adler's view is that inferiority complexes arise when we compare ourselves to others or measure our worth by external standards. Instead of striving to be superior to others, which breeds competition and resentment, we should aim for community feeling, a sense of belonging and contribution to the collective good. The philosopher illustrates this with the idea that everyone is equal but different, like stars in the sky, each shining in its own way. Accepting yourself as you are, without needing to prove your worth, liberates you from the need for external approval and empowers you to live authentically. The book also challenges the notion that the past determines the present in a striking departure from Freud's focus on childhood trauma. Adlerian psychology asserts that we assign meaning to our past experiences through our current perspective. The philosopher explains this through the concept of teleology versus etiology. Rather than being caused by past events, etiology, our behaviors and emotions are driven by the goals we set for ourselves in the present, teleology. For instance, someone might claim they lack confidence because of a difficult childhood, but the philosopher argues this is a self-imposed narrative to justify staying in a comfort zone. By choosing new goals and purposes, we can reinterpret our past and reshape our present. This message empowers readers to take responsibility for their lives, recognizing that they are not victims of circumstance, but active creators of their own stories. Another critical point is the rejection of the desire for recognition. The philosopher asserts that seeking praise or approval from others is a form of living for someone else's expectations, which undermines personal freedom. Instead, Adlerian psychology encourages intrinsic motivation acting because it aligns with your values, not because it earns you applause. The young man struggles with this, pointing out that recognition feels good and motivates action, but the philosopher counters that relying on it creates dependency and fear of disapproval. True happiness comes from contributing to others without expecting anything in return, as this fosters a sense of purpose and connection. The book illustrates this with the idea that even small, selfless acts like helping a stranger or doing your work diligently build a sense of community and personal fulfillment. The concept of horizontal relationships versus vertical relationships is another key message. Vertical relationships are hierarchical, based on power dynamics like superiority or inferiority, such as a boss commanding a subordinate or a parent controlling a child. Horizontal relationships, by contrast, are based on equality and mutual respect, where individuals see each other as partners rather than competitors or judges. The philosopher urges the young man to cultivate horizontal relationships in all areas of life, family, work, and friendships to foster trust and genuine connection. This shift requires courage, as it means letting go of the need to dominate or submit, but it creates healthier, more fulfilling interactions. The book also addresses the fear of being disliked, which it frames as a barrier to freedom. The philosopher explains that being disliked by some is inevitable if you live authentically, as not everyone will align with your values or choices. However, this is not a failure, but a sign of courage. The courage to be disliked means prioritizing your own path over pleasing others, even if it invites criticism. The young man initially finds this daunting, fearing isolation, but the philosopher reassures him that being disliked by some does not mean being alone. By contributing to the community and building horizontal relationships, you create meaningful connections with those who share your values, which is more fulfilling than universal approval. A significant portion of the dialogue explores the idea of living in the present. The philosopher introduces Adler's view that life is a series of nows, discrete moments that we experience one at a time. Dwelling on the past or worrying about the future distracts from fully engaging with the present moment. This perspective encourages mindfulness and intentionality, urging readers to focus on what they can do now to align with their goals and values. The philosopher uses a metaphor of life as a dance, not a destination, suggesting that happiness lies in the act of living itself, not in reaching some ultimate goal. The book concludes with a powerful call to action: to live with courage, contribute to others, and embrace your unique place in the world. The philosopher emphasizes that happiness is not a state to be achieved, but a process of living authentically and contributing to the community. By accepting yourself, separating tasks, and letting go of the need for recognition, you can achieve a sense of freedom and fulfillment. The young man, initially skeptical, comes to see the wisdom in these ideas, realizing that happiness is within his control if he dares to live boldly and authentically. In essence, the courage to be disliked offers a radical yet practical philosophy for personal transformation. Its key messages: embracing self-acceptance, taking responsibility for your own path, focusing on contribution over recognition, cultivating equal relationships, and living in the present, challenge readers to rethink their approach to life. Grounded in Adlerian psychology, the book's teachings are both timeless and actionable, encouraging a shift from external validation to internal freedom. By having the courage to be disliked, you can break free from societal pressures, rewrite your narrative, and create a life of genuine happiness and purpose.